Good evening, and welcome to the Redwood Library in Athenæum in Newport, Rhode Island. We're resuming our music appreciation series with Dr. Edward Markward. And tonight, this is our third session with Mozart's operas, and this one is Così fan tutti. So, Dr. Markward, welcome again, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Patricia. Welcome, everyone. We're about to do the third in this, what I call a trilogy, although they're not necessarily connected, other than Mozart and the Ponte were the prime movers of these three operas. We began with The Marriage of Figaro, Le Nozze di Figaro, and then we did Don Giovanni, and now we're to Così fan tutte, a short title which means thus do they all. Usually translated as all women are like that or something of that nature. Così, thus, fan, do, and tutte, we know it is women because of the feminine ending to the word tutte. If it were tutti, we would think it would be men, but it's tutte, so thus do they all refers to women. There is a subtitle, Ossia, or La Scuola degli Amanti, the School for Lovers. And as I mentioned, the text is by Lorenzo da Ponte and the music is by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The first performance took place on January 26th at the Burgtheater in Vienna. And it appears that da Ponte's libretto was first given to Salieri, Antonio Salieri, Mozart's chief rival in the city of Venice at the court opera. And he set a couple of numbers, Salieri did, and then gave up on it. And he declined the commission. Mozart was in need of money, and he accepted the commission, and it also gave him a chance to work again with da Ponte. There was pressure to finish this opera in short order because the Emperor Joseph was not in good health. As a matter of fact, he passed away 5 days after the premiere performance. The performances were indeed well attended. One review stated, concerning the music, that it is by Mozart is all I have to say, I believe. And the Emperor Joseph died after 5 performances. Further performances were canceled as all the opera houses and theaters in Vienna were closed at the time for a period of mourning. There were further performances that summer. And then after those summer performances, Così was not heard in Vienna again for another 4 years. The problems had to do more with da Ponte's libretto. And by the way, he cribbed most of it from earlier myths, legends, stories, what have you. Some found it offensive and frivolous. And it is the story of 2 women who cannot recognize their own lovers or their own maid through thin disguises, who fall in love with and agree to marry 2 new suitors almost as soon as their old ones have been called away. It is supposed to demonstrate that women can't be trusted, but I believe that if men act in this way, they probably shouldn't be trusted either. Such an implausible story was thought to be not quite valid for such great music as Mozart wrote. I'll give you the synopsis in a bit. Years after its premiere, Mozart's widow Costanza reported that Salieri, after sketching a few uninspired musical ideas, turned down the project as being unworthy of invention. Costanza herself, Mozart's wife, had reservations about the story. It's quoted, she does not much admire the plot, but agreed that such music would carry any piece through. In this sketchy libretto that da Ponte handed him, Mozart did ask for changes to sharpen the characterizations and the humor. And as we know from the previous 2 operas that we have studied, that Mozart was a master at characterization. And you will see in this opera, there is no exception. All the characters are clearly delineated as to what they are about. Indeed, this plot was so frowned upon that in Germany it was heard in new translations. Recitative was replaced by dialogue, much as in a Singspiel, such as the Magic Flute, where the recitatives are spoken. Plot and characters were changed, and it was all sanitized to avoid the stigma of morality. What we have to understand is that we cannot look at what goes on in this opera through our eyes, or even the eyes of 100 years after the piece was written. The Viennese accepted this piece on the conditions as follows. If it has a great aria, good recitatives that make a good scene, and those scenes are connected and make a good act, and the acts are connected and make a good opera, then who cares? As long as the music is by Mozart and is great, then we're in good shape. The opera lay fallow for about 100 years. And then in 1897, the German composer Richard Strauss conducted influential performances in Munich. And in a translation that was very, it was based on the actual text that libretto that the Ponte had written. So it was a more accurate translation. Strauss, respected what he called the delicate irony of the libretto. And so that began the rehabilitation of Così fan tutte. And today, of course, it is a major part of the operatic repertoire and is performed in opera houses all over the world. The mid-20th century musicologist Alfred Einstein said it is iridescent like a glorious soap bubble. It took until 1967 for there to be a full recording of the piece. And Mozart imbued this rather cynical libretto with extraordinary music, some of which I believe is among the most beautiful that he ever wrote, and we shall hear it soon. And the humor is, of course, in the opera buffa tradition and is also first rate. This, like Giovanni, is called a dramma giocoso. You can think of that as playful or joke, if you like. It is not giocoso, sort of looks like the word joyful, but that's not it. It's closer to a joke. But there is drama, as there was in Giovanni. It has in common with the other two operas that it takes place in a period of only 24 hours, one day. This whole plot takes place. And there are many disguises, all except the sisters and Don Alfonso adopt a disguise. The two gentlemen, Guglielmo and Ferrando, the two soldiers who are engaged, the two sisters, Dorabella and Fiordiligi, the soldiers adopt disguises to woo the two sisters and try to get to prove that they are not faithful. Despina adopts two. She becomes a doctor and later a notary. I'm going to read a bit and do it as quickly as I can. I tell you now that for next time when we do Haydn's Creation, Ms. Pettit has agreed and has found a way to put translations on the web page so that you can see them, download them before we begin. The advantages of Crowdcast are many. One of the disadvantages is that I can't give you a handout, so I'm going to have to read this. Act 1, Don Alfonso, a baritone, and his young friends, Ferrando, a tenor, and Guglielmo, a baritone, argue over the fidelity of women. Alfonso suggests that all women are fickle, while Ferrando and Guglielmo refuse to believe that their fiancés, the sisters Fiordiligi, a soprano, and Dorabella, a mezzo-soprano, could ever be unfaithful. Don Alfonso wagers that by the end of that very day, their fiancés will have betrayed them. He instructs Ferrando and Guglielmo to pretend that they've been called off to war. Fiordiligi and Dorabella are singing the praises of Guglielmo and Ferrando when Don Alfonso crashes the party and tells them what's going on, that the men have been called to battlefield. The young men arrive and the two couples bid each other a tearful farewell. Despina, the maid to the sisters, and a soprano or a mezzo, it's been taken by both, is preparing their breakfast when Fiordiligi and Dorabella enter, lamenting the departure. She counsels them to amuse themselves while their lovers are away. And so it goes through Act 1. And the sisters in Act 2 finally begin to sway in their fidelity. And indeed, by the end of the opera, they have adopted as their lovers the reverse of the two that they had when the opera began. All ends well. There is a wedding banquet, and Dorabella, who was with Ferrando, is now going to marry Guglielmo, and Fiordiligi, who was with Guglielmo, is now going to marry Dorabella. The two soldiers are disguised as Albanians. All of a sudden, we hear music of a military nature. The Albanians run off and hide, and sure enough, back come the two soldiers. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. It requires a scene or a costume change, and it takes about 30 seconds of music to get that change done. When I did this role of Guglielmo about 54 or 55 years ago, we wore sabers of a curved nature. And what one does backstage is stand like a statue while the dresser puts on the new costume. And so the sword was put on me backwards. And so it was always pointed out. There may have been a couple of double entendres there that were unintentional comedy in that production. We do, again, as we did in Giovanni, have a moral, and it goes, I will explain when we hear it, but everybody is to follow their brains and not their emotions. The problem is that this opera is rather open-ended. When the boys come back and everybody swears fidelity and allegiance and everyone is forgiven for this ruse, the problem is Mozart nor da Ponte delineate who is going to come back with who. Who are the pairings going to be? I would venture to say in 95% of the productions that Guglielmo is back with his original sister, Fiordiligi, and Ferrando is back with his original fiancée, Dorabella. But we don't know. With this wedding all set up, could it be that maybe they should marry the ones with whom they have spent the last several hours? Anyway, let us go on and listen to some of this great music. The title, Così fan tutte, is pronounced in the overture itself. The instruments take it. And toward the end of Act 2, the three men, Ferrando, Guglielmo, and Don Alfonso, also utter the phrase, Così fan tutte. And you would recognize it if you heard it because it's done in the overture twice. Also, the words Così fan tutte were used in The Marriage of Figaro. As a matter of fact, they were used several times. And the music that accompanied them in The Marriage of Figaro with those words comes back 57 times. Here is the overture to the Così fan tutte. Our esteemed soloists here are Montserrat Caballé is the soprano Fiordiligi. Dame Janet Baker was the Dorabella. Iliana Cortubas is the Despina. The great Nicolai Gedda is Ferrando. Villamiro Valenza is Guglielmo, and Richard Allen is Don Alfonso. Here we are, the overture to Così fan tutte. Let me do that again. I had no speaker. Very tender opening oboe solo. Scurrying figures in the fiddles. Almost impossible figures in the woodwinds. Mozart's way of showing us there's going to be great action and fast. Let me move along toward the end so you can hear the Così fan tutte one more time. See? Fan tutte. One of his great overtures. I think they all are. Next, we come to the opening scene in Act 1. It takes place in a bottega di caffè, a coffee house, or in some settings, it could be a tavern. It's Ferrando, the tenor, Guglielmo, the baritone, and Don Alfonso, their mentor and friend. And here is where the boys, the two soldiers, say, you know, to doubt Fiordiligi, to doubt Dorabella would no more be right. It just is impossible. And of course, Alfonso has his doubts. And in fact, are they goddesses or are they women? So here we go with Act 1, the first trio. There are 3 trios to open the opera. We hear first Ferrando. Guglielmo. Alfonso. In the next trio, Don Alfonso compares a woman who never cheats to a phoenix. A woman's constancy is like the Arabian phoenix. Everyone swears it exists, but no one knows where. And so the bet is made that the women will prove unfaithful within 24 hours. Again, you will hear a bit of the così fan tutte motive creeping in at the end. Sorry. Don Alfonso.
Questa non è quella non, mai non mi sarà, non mi sarà, non mi sarà. Delle femmine come la felice giovane, la felice, piaccia ciascuno di te, mio Dio, dove sia, mio Dio, dove sia, dorme.
So the bet is made, as you could tell from that Ferrando and Guglielmo vociferously disagree with Don Alfonso. So they have made the bet, and the guys decide they're going to have a party, and they're going to serenade their ladies with a fine serenade, as Ferrando sings at the beginning. If you listen when they clink champagne glasses, and one of the things that Mozart does here is imitate the clinking of the champagne glasses or the bubbles of the champagne itself with trills in the orchestra. It's absolutely miraculous what Mozart can do. Alfonso asks if he can join the party. Of course.
d'amor. Alleluia.
When Mozart wants to sparkle, there's just no one like him. Moving on, the sisters have sung a duet, extolling the virtues of their two fiancés. And then the soldiers have been called off to war, presumably. And so we have come to the next larger ensemble, Di scrivermi ogni giorno. It's called the Farewell Quintet. And you'll hear the words uttered by the women. They sound as if they are weeping, and indeed they are. When they say farewell, listen to the care that's taken with the word addio. And on the side, of course, Don Alfonso thinks it's a really big joke. They begin, Fior di Ligi, swear that you write to me every day, my love. And Dorabella sings, write to me twice as often if you can. Ferrando, never doubt me, my dear. Guglielmo, rest assured, my love. And Alfonso to himself, I'll burst if I don't die laughing. Let me interrupt this gorgeous music for just a moment. Here we have a real contrast between this great, lovely music for the ladies, Guglielmo and Ferrando, and then we have the stock Buffa character interrupting with his own thoughts. And this is one of those inventions of Mozart, beginning with earlier than Le Nozze di Figaro, but still his, that all the characters in a finale or in a large ensemble have their own thoughts. This is among the most beautiful music that Mozart has written, and yet he has the courage to keep the plot moving forward by interrupting with this stock Buffa character, this funny guy who is in charge of everything in this opera. And then comes some military music, and the two soldiers, Ferrando and Guglielmo, go off supposedly to war. And then comes another of Mozart's most beautiful creations, I think, Soave sia il vento, It's sort of the calm seas and prosperous voyage idea that Mendelssohn and Beethoven seized upon. You can hear the breeze rustling in the upper strings, and this is absolutely has to be played as seriously as possible. Don Alfonso joins Dorabella and Fiordiligi in wishing the soldiers a safe journey. And they sing, "Gentle be the breeze, calm be the waves, and every element smile in favor on their wish." The woodwinds add such a sheen and almost an organ-like quality. Next, we move on. The women, of course, are very, very distraught at having their boys go away. Their maid, Despina, though, has other ideas on how to deal with this. She lectures the sisters, enjoy yourselves while the soldiers are away. The orchestration is perfect, I think, and it perfectly describes this character. And it seems to me, at least, that Despina knows exactly what she is talking about, and perhaps might have some experience in this realm. And she sings, "In uomini, in soldati, in men, in soldiers, you look for fidelity." She laughs. "Don't tell me that, for pity's sake. All of them are made of the same stuff. The quivering leaves, the inconstant breezes have more stability than men." Fidelity.
Non li fate sentire per carità. E vostra fede sono tutti quanti e quanti buoni, anche costanti, al più degli occhi, stabilità, come siete nobile. Non lasci sguardi, voci ingannevoli, mezzi bugiardi, son poi ci disprezzano nei lanciate, nei vanità calma di chiedere pietà, nei vanità calma di chiedere pietà, per pietà.
And so on. By now, the guys have arrived disguised as Albanians. Actually, they could be anything, but at this time, when Mozart was writing, remember the abduction from the Seraglio. Composers of this period became rather fascinated with the sounds of Turkish music and music of the Near East. And so, of course, they would be disguised as Albanians because there is that element of the Near East, a mysterious sort of quality. So they come in disguised and they start the wooing process. And Fiordiligi steps forth in one of the great arias, not only in this opera, but in any others. She tries to kick them out, singing, "Depart, you ingrates," says, "Death alone will part us. I'm an example of constancy and will stand like a rock, come scoglio." It's a wonderful setting of the text. This is also one of the most difficult arias in the whole operatic repertoire. The range is high, very high, and low, very low. We need power in the chest voice, clarity in the upper voice, and the ability to negotiate all the fioratura, or the fast singing that goes on with many fast notes. Excuse me. I debated whether to tell you this story or not, because this aria, in spite of all the pitfalls, must be sung with all seriousness, as did the previous two, the trio Soave and the quintet we heard. It's such beautiful music and must be sung with sincerity for any of this to work. Mozart's soprano in this particular opera, who portrayed Fiordiligi, was a lover of the Ponte, and to put it mildly, Mozart hated her. And so he wrote this most difficult aria in a way to get even with her. Additionally, she had a habit of tucking her chin for low notes and raising it for high notes. So apparently, she looked a bit like a chicken when singing this. And because of the difficulty of this absolutely magnificent aria, my wife Diana has said, and because of her, we all have to bear the consequences. Here is the recitative and the aria Come Scoglio, sung by Fiordiligi. I will be skipping around a bit. Get out, terrorists. Like a rock. Like a rock standing impervious to winds and tempests. So stands my heart ever strong in faith and love. Here is an even faster part. Quite an aria. And sung perfectly honestly by Montserrat Caballé there. I think it's a great moment in the opera. It's sort of the equal, if it's not quite the same, but it's the same sentiment of her being like a rock, standing faithful. And the Countess in Figaro with Dove Sono, Mi Tradii in Don Giovanni, all these big arias for strong character sopranos. We move now toward the end of the act. Ferrando has not made any progress in his wooing of courting of Fiordiligi. So he sings this most gorgeous aria, Un'aura amorosa, an aura of love from our treasures will sweetly restore our hearts, sweet sustenance, a heart nourished on the hope of love. I'm going to start it in the middle because the verse or the stanza repeats itself, and you'll get to hear the ending of it. Begins that way. And this is from virtually the middle of the aria to the end. Un'aura amorosa. When I was at the University of Michigan in the early 70s, my teacher was the great John McCollum, a wonderful tenor who sang all over the world. His daughter got married while I was there, and John sang this great aria at his daughter's wedding. I think that is a very touching thing to do and a very touching thing to think about. We come now to the finale of Act 1, and we're going to listen to part of it, the end of it. The finale is actually 18 minutes to 20 minutes long, depending on tempi, of course, and it is the single most inclusive period of music that Mozart ever wrote. It's, as I say, 18 to 20 minutes long, non-stop music. Ferrando and Guglielmo are trying to make progress here, and the ensemble is Dammi un bacio, give me a kiss. So they sing, give me a kiss, my treasure, one single kiss, or else I die. And Fiordiligi, Dorabella, heavens, a kiss. Despina says, agree, an act of kindness. Fiordiligi and Dorabella, this is too much to ask of a chaste and faithful woman. It's an outrage to my love. It's an outrage to my heart. Meanwhile, Despina, Ferrando, Guglielmo, and Don Alfonso aside, a more amusing picture can't be found in all the world. That which makes me laugh the most is their rage and fury. It's going to build and go faster, if you can believe it. That's only Act One. We're now going to have to jump to the very end of the opera, which means I'm going to cut out about an hour and 25 minutes worth of music. We're going to cut to where the boys come back as themselves, as soldiers. Sanye selvi agli amplesi amorosi. Safe and sound, exulting with joy, we return to the loving embrace of our faithful sweethearts to crown them for their constancy. And then, of course, they trap the girls and do parts of what the music that they did when they were disguised as Albanians. And then we come to the end, the moral, all is forgiven. So let's do this, a couple of bits here. Sanye Selvi, safe and sound, we've returned. Don Alfonso feigns surprise. Then Alfonso asks, what the heavens? Guglielmo, Ferrando, what joy you're here, how and when? And they say, recalled by royal command. Our hearts are full of contentment and joy. And now the very end, the moral. Happy is the man who looks at everything on the right side, etc., makes reason his guide, beginning with Fiordiligi and Dorabella. My love, if this is true, with fidelity and with love, I will make good what I have done and adore you evermore. We'll see, huh? And then the moral. The guys sing, I believe you, my fair one, but I won't put it to the test. Despina sings, I don't know if I'm awake or dreaming. Putting the bow on the package. Coming. See you in November when we talk about Haydn's The Creation. And then in December, we're going to do Monteverdi's great The Vespers of 1610. Be safe, stay well, see you soon.